Within my company, safety is always the first priority. So that's a given. There is the opportunity for something to go wrong, something abnormal to happen. So we need to think about how do we deploy all of this wonderful technology that we now have to its best extent. If you are deploying those cameras in the right way, in the efficient way, you effectively have a 24/7 value stream map going on.
Welcome to another episode of our podcast, Make US Manufacturing Competitive Again, where we talk about technology and AI accelerating manufacturing competitiveness. Today, we are honored to have Sacha, who has spent 30 years in manufacturing, and we are honored to have him in this discussion. We would love to learn more about his background and his experience in running manufacturing plants and his application of technology. So, Sacha, welcome to the podcast, and let us know about your expertise and your background so viewers can understand.
Absolutely. Thank you, Deepak. Really happy to be here. Yes, my name's Sacha. I was born in the UK, so don't let the deep Southern accent fool you, but currently reside in the US. I've been here since 2001. As you mentioned, I've spent pretty much 30 years. I just passed my 30-year anniversary in automotive. The first 6 years of my career were with Ford Motor Company. I did spend quite a bit of time in quality there, but also some time in program management, application or design engineering. Had a really very interested and varied career in those 6 years with Ford. But finally, my green card came through and I realized my dream of moving to America. So I now work for the past 24 years. I've been working for a global tier one powertrain solutions provider to the OEM light passenger vehicle market. Again, the majority of my career has been spent within quality. It seems to keep sucking me back in, but with some time in program management again. And my current level, I'm a global director of customer quality and new program launch, which I really enjoy because I get to take all of the experiences I've had and do my very best to feed it into our new product, new program development phase, and also to help ensure that my company's corporate strategy with respect to quality and manufacturing is aligned with our key customer strategies. And again, we're living in a very dynamic world, especially with the advent of eDrive, which has had something of a setback, but certainly it is the future. And is something we need to be aware of.
Oh, this is great. Sacha, when you were talking to me about your experience in manufacturing, I know you talked a lot about the Toyota way, and you also talked about technology. And I know you have a very holistic 360-degree view of the plant here. And for the benefit of our audience, could you connect the dots in technology, right? In technology being used in manufacturing, what is the right way to use it effectively, given the realities of the plant? What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question, and we could probably talk for hours on that subject. I think technology is effectively always a tool. So if we talk about how do we apply technology in manufacturing, first of all, we got to think about the technological leaps that we've actually made in terms of the finished products that we're delivering. So if we look at as a very simple example, if we look at what the expected lifetime of a vehicle is, it's at least 150,000 miles now. And most companies are offering 3 to 4 years, sometimes a lifetime, 3 to 4 years bumper to bumper, but then with a lifetime warranty on the powertrain and the engine components, which are the hardest working components of the vehicle. 60, 70 years ago, you got a year's warranty if you were lucky. And again, if we even think maybe not so far back as 30 years ago, it was said that a good car was one that where you put the key in the ignition, it fired up every time. Yeah, that was a really good car. Today, you expect that car to operate flawlessly for 200,000 miles with all of the incredible technology that's now been added into that vehicle. And essentially, you would say, well, it doesn't squeak or rattle when I drive it. I mean, what a different perception of what quality means to someone. the fact that it will always start every time you put the key in it, that's a given. That's from yesteryear. So we've got to think about that. We're delivering incredibly, I would say, finely tuned or very tight tolerances with just about everything in the car, and the systems that are now incorporated in those vehicles with respect to the infotainment system, with respect to all of the active and passive safety features, with respect to the fuel economy, 10-speed automatic gearboxes. I mean, everything is just at a completely different level. And as we've mentioned, with the advent of eDrive, where software really becomes incredibly important, there is, again, a whole different set of expectations there, regulatory requirements, cybersecurity, etc., that we have to deliver upon. And that quality has to be flawless, because all of these technological advances come with a cost, and to replace or to fix those technologically advanced products in the field becomes ever more exponentially expensive. And so now we think about the technology we need to deliver that technology in the finished product. Within my company, safety is always the first priority. So that's a given. So on the manufacturing shop floor, we do always need to be considering how are we ensuring the safety of our employees throughout the entire value stream. So we are literally looking at dock to dock, from the moment the parts are received in the plant to where they are placed into stores, then staged onto the shop floor, the actual processing of those components and raw materials into a finished product, packaging of that finished product back into the stores. This time it's our outgoing stores. They might go through some kind of a final inspection, normally they will, and dock audit, and then those parts get loaded onto a truck and they go out to the customer. But it really does need to be dock to dock. And I always find that quality is essentially immediately adjacent to safety. Obviously, we want all of our employees to go home safe, come to work safe, go home safe every day. But then we need to also think about flawless quality. So what does that mean? And at every stage in that dock to dock process, there is the opportunity for something to go wrong, something abnormal to happen. So we need to think about, how do we deploy all of this wonderful technology that we now have to its best extent, so that we are ensuring primarily the safety, but then a very close second, the flawless quality that our customers are expecting us to deliver. Now, that's a rather generic answer to your question. And I'm happy to maybe dive into a little bit more detail as to, where do we go from that rather generic overview into something more specific. But I'll leave that up to you.
No, that was a great answer. I think it was a great overview of how everybody should think about manufacturing floors, right? First, you got to look at dock to dock. It makes a lot of sense, right? It's not just one specific area. You got to also understand the interaction between quality and safety. And I would say productivity, right? They all kind of bunch together. If one
Yes,
breaks, the other one is like a tripod, right? You can't have
exactly.
one of them broken. That does make sense. And users of this technology, there's a very human aspect to this technology, obviously. And when we start introducing these technologies that are external to the person working on the line or the people on the floor, monitoring technologies that measure or assess.
Right.
How do you see that being deployed? And what are your thoughts on the human aspect of that interaction between technology and humans?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, again, I've seen some just incredible advances and steps forward over my 30 years in automotive. Virtualization, I would call it, the advent of the digital twin, the advent of something like Google Glass, wearable technology. One of the locations within my company, normally you'd have a barcode gun, so you'd scan each part, or you'd be using that gun to scan a box or a batch of parts coming in to maintain traceability. Now they have something that looks, it's a wearable device. They have it on their hand. It's a glove, and they effectively point it. It looks like something out of science fiction, but they'll just point it at the part, and they have a little thumb press, and instead of using a gun, it's now wearable technology, and it has a screen on it, and it gives them a readout of everything. All of that information is stored. So I think there's definitely the ability to enhance the operator's awareness and understanding, and again from a safety perspective as well, but in terms of quality, to understand that what they're receiving is the correct product at the correct time, at the correct sequence in the assembly process, so that they have a confidence that they're executing whatever it is they're processed correctly. And again, you can extend that not just to people who are working with the products in the manufacturing process. This is in terms of selecting the right products. A lot of our products are quite similar. It is potentially easy to mix them. So we're making sure, even before the parts have been staged to the assembly line or to the manufacturing line, the person who's responsible for selecting, first of all, finding the product in a huge warehouse should take you directly to where that product is, no more searching. Keeping your inventory levels managed, so that you know you're not going to run out of parts. Ensuring that that correct part is selected and taken to the correct place on the shop floor. As I say, the technology is there to really visualize all of that to the operator and ensure as much as we can that they do their jobs right the first time, which is, again, a direct tie into overall operating efficiency. Right first time means exactly that. You don't have any waste, you don't have rework, you don't have the risk of mixing products which may pass through your inbuilt quality systems, and then unfortunately your next customer becomes the quality gate and you end up with a customer concern. So right first time should always be our goal. And then in terms of the more mechanical processes that we have, where the operator interaction is taken out of the equation, the traceability to ensure that those mechanical processes have also been executed successfully. So ensuring that every bolt has been fastened to the correct torque and angle, every bearing has been pressed with the right amount of force to the correct position. The functional testing that we do, especially within powertrain, and this is at both the hardware level, so we're talking about physical stresses, strains, forces, things like that. We're talking about the software level, ensure that the correct software has been flashed and it's at the correct revision level, and then the mechatronic relationship, because just about every powertrain product now has a brain, or at least has sensors of some kind monitoring how that product is functioning. When we perform our end-of-line tests, there are probably hundreds, I know there are hundreds of different things that we are verifying and confirming, so that when that product exits the end-of-line functional test and it's ready to be packaged, we have that best case guarantee that we can say, yes, we know this product is working as it should, and that we can safely ship it to our customer and there should be no quality defects. So again, and you can apply that technology to just about every facet of the process. We have gigabytes of data related to each component that we build. If a customer has a concern in the field or at their plant, they can send us a serial number, and we have traceability from the point at which that part exited the end-of-line functional test all the way down to the raw materials. And it's just amazing to have all of that at your fingertips, but it helps you understand if and when and possibly where that abnormality occurred.
Oh, it's fascinating, the amount of data that is generated. The traceability is a huge factor here. I get it, especially since, it's for quality, because you have to go back and root cause, and without traceability, you can't do anything. You can't even get started on what the problem is, right?
Right.
So yeah, I can totally see that. From a productivity standpoint, if I were to just switch lanes a little bit, or rather just streamline to this point where we're talking about making manufacturing plants more competitive, right? How do you define this path from where we are today to US plants being extremely competitive? Do you think that we'll be more focused on reducing costs or improving, by automation and so on, or we'll be talking about a much higher quality that nobody else can meet? Where do you see this going from a competitiveness standpoint?
It's a great question, Deepak, and I think one actually is an organic outcome of the other. We talk about reducing costs. Now, there are many different ways to do that. I think if you could improve your capability, it's not just about delivering 100% perfect quality. If your fallout rate is 50%, your customer's only receiving perfect parts. Great. You've achieved that side of the equation. But what about the 50% of the product that didn't make it through your perfect quality gate? And you then have to reclaim or scrap or rework. But again, it's one of the, or many of the classic seven wastes. Again, look, going back to my TPS gurus who taught me very well, we need to focus on eliminating all of those wastes. That can even include overprocessing. Overprocessing is one of the seven wastes. So we can use technology to say, do we need to have multiple redundant systems? Can we just check this once and be certain that it's okay? And I think this is where the focus of the American manufacturing locations needs to be, because our overhead costs are high. We're not considered a low cost or best cost country. Traditionally, we are sourcing components from overseas. So I would say that side of the equation, outside of what we choose to insource, is already taken care of. And there will be continue to be, I would say, a very dynamic environment. Asia will continue to be a very important part of supplying components to American locations. However, I see a huge amount of investment now going on in Central America, North America. So definitely Mexico, I think, is going to become, it's already an extremely important manufacturing supplier hub. Eastern Europe as well is also undiscovered territory. And then what's coming next out of India, out of Africa? You know, these are the next areas. It almost seems to be a cycle. Maybe 100 years ago, America was considered a low-cost country, and my native England was considered a high-cost country. Well, those tables have changed again. Now we've gone to other markets. So I think we'll continually chase how can we get the raw materials and components that we need at the best possible cost. But then comes the processing of those raw materials and components. So the faster we can process them with a right first time guarantee, and through that avoid any of the wastes with respect to what we're doing within the value stream. And then later on, when it reaches the final customer, you provide them with a perfect product that in theory doesn't break down. So you avoid all of those 0 kilometer concerns, those field concerns, those warranty concerns. Those are all costs that eat away at your bottom line. And as well as we can account for them, you always get the occasional surprise. So I really feel that's where America as a country, if it wants to remain competitive, it's not just about having the cutting edge technology, it's ensuring that it's reliable and it doesn't go wrong in the field. And that way you end up with a happy customer who probably more likely than not is prepared to spend maybe a little bit extra than they would if they source that product overseas. Also, there's the reliability aspect of that. COVID, I think, really sent some shockwaves through the system, and we found out just how vulnerable our global supply chains truly are. So I believe there is a desire to insource and vertically integrate, whereas once before that was not there. But there are limits, right? If you can only insource and vertically integrate, but it costs 40% more, you're not going to do that because it's cheaper for you to take the chance and still be able to meet the profit margins that your company needs to survive. So focusing on efficiency, right first time, 100% quality, and not just when they bolt it into the car, but 10 years down the road as well, to avoid all of the warranty costs. That's where I think we need to be focused on. And I believe we have been. I think we've realized that for a long time, but the importance of that is going to be ever more critical.
No, it's a great point. And the efficiency part is something that we are passionate about at Moy. Just a double clicking into that concept, right? You're talking about efficiency. I know the seven forms of waste that you talked about. It makes you cut costs. It makes you more efficient. Traditionally, we've seen people hire managers or floor supervisors walking the plant, making
Yes,
sure that it's not just the machines that talk to them, but they're actually seeing and
right.
experiencing the process as what they call a Gemba walk or something similar to
Yes,
that. Just to be able to see and observe and understand, because the human mind can extract a lot more visually than just from reams of data that comes out of your
Yes.
system. So if you were, so that's kind of where we think at Moy we could make a difference. And so just a thought experiment here, right? If you had
Mhm.
cameras, which you do already, cameras looking at the entire facility, if they could say a story of how to improve the plant and improve the efficiency of the plant on a minute to minute basis. This is not,
Mhm.
we're not talking about a new technology being introduced. We're just saying, hey,
Right.
if there was a virtual person walking around the plant, now it's been replaced by a camera with an AI
Mhm.
that's replacing that person. What stories, what would that system do? What can that system do? And how
Yeah.
can it move the needle?
You've got, I'd say if you are deploying those cameras in the right way, in the efficient way, you effectively have a 24/7 value stream map going on. And one of the first steps you take within Lean when you engage on the Lean journey is to select any given process. Typically it'll be one that is considered to be problematic or there's opportunity for improvement. And one of the first tasks towards the Kaizen or continual improvement activity is to conduct a value stream map. So you want to be looking at all of the movement, because over movement is another waste. So you literally want to make sure you have the fastest and most efficient possible time. Distance effectively equals time as well to an extent, but you're making sure you've got the shortest possible route, let's say from the moment at which your raw material comes in to the point at which your finished product comes out. That's a very macro overlook, and then you can split it up into the microprocesses. So as we mentioned, we receive the parts, we inspect the parts, maybe there's some receiving inspection. Once that batch of parts is considered good, it's moved to an area, it's stored. Then you want to be processing those parts as quickly as possible. Parts hanging around is money you've spent, not making any money for you. It's
Mhm.
lost value effectively. So selecting those parts, processing them as quickly as possible through your manufacturing and assembly process, then we start looking at that route or that routing, right? You could be going through, I don't know, but I mean, I give an example from my background. You would typically go through a soft turning process. Then you're going to be going through probably a grinding or rolling or forming process, a heat treatment process, hard machining or hard turning after heat treatment, final inspection. There may be multiple inspection steps within each one of those key processes. What's the shortest possible route? What's the absolute minimum that
Mhm.
needs to be put into that process to guarantee the desired outcome? And if you have cameras looking at all of this, as you say, you can't have someone who's truly omnipotent and can see everything.
Mhm.
But with cameras, in a way, you can have that.
Mhm.
And you're seeing, are the processes that I believe to be effective, are they truly effective? Are they efficient? Where are opportunities for improvement? And again, the idea is not to punish people, is not to force people to work harder. It's to help them to work more efficiently, safer, and with
Smarter.
the quality built in, yeah, safer, smarter, etc. So we can design and continually improve and refine and enhance those process cycles so that we end up with that ideal. And within Lean, if you boil it down to its simplest elements, it's order one, make one, and ship one. It should
On time.
just be that simple, and obviously do it perfectly each time as well. But
Right.
that's effectively what Lean means. So I think the deployment of those cameras certainly is a huge asset towards helping to realize that goal.
No, that's great. It's fascinating how much more we can do, regardless of how much has already been done. There's so
Yes,
much opportunity. That's what
there's
keeps us
always more.
excited. Just to finish up, as if you were to give advice to
Hmm.
executives who are automotive or tier one or
Hmm.
suppliers or part manufacturers, executives here who are considering technology investments.
Yes.
What sort of advice would you have for them to choose the right investment?
Again, it's a great question. I think it's important to bring in the human element as much as we like to talk about mechanization, automation, etc. We've We've gone to an extremely automated, complex assembly cell. Something that would traditionally take 25 or 30 operators, we reduced it down to 5. It's huge. And you now almost need an army of maintenance people, because when something breaks down in an automation chain, you people generally are very good. They're very adaptive. They can say, "Oh, this is broken down, so we'll figure a workaround process." Well, machines don't do that. They just sit there until they're fixed. So automation is not necessarily always the answer. I think achieving the balance is the right answer. But
Mhm.
before you start to bring in these new technologies, talk to your people, look at the human element of it. If we think about cameras, how many of us would feel comfortable in our homes to have a camera watching everything we do? And I'm talking about not a camera we control, but a camera that someone else has absolute control over. So they're seeing every single thing we're doing. How would we feel about that? And I think the answer to that's going to be not very happy and not very comfortable, because data is data, but how you use that data, what is it being deployed for? As I said,
Mhm.
we don't want people to be punished for being human. And so we need to bring people in. And if we are to start deploying cameras in a way that means there is essentially going to be 24/7 monitoring, then we have a lot of things to consider. How comfortable is our team with that? What are the privacy laws, which vary hugely between, say, a country in Europe versus a country in Asia versus a country in America? Cybersecurity. Who's going to have access to this data? How could it effectively be abused? We need to consider all of those things, and we need to reassure the human element that I believe is always going to be there, to whatever extent it is, that the idea of bringing in these vision systems and cameras that are going to be monitoring is not to punish. The idea is to always be on the lookout for how we can improve. One example I can give is where we engaged with a company, and they showed how they could just watch continually range of motion by the operators. And so you can say, all right, well, this guy's or this person's reaching all the time for something. We need to bring that closer to them. Or maybe there are two elements of a pick and place that are too close together. So it's easy to, maybe as you're picking one up, you could be picking more than one up and dropping by accident a very
Mhm.
similar components into another storage bin. You're going to be looking at all of that and thinking, how can we use this to make the operator's life as simple, straightforward, and enhance their ability to always follow their standard work? Again, you'll
Mhm.
you'll get bored of me using the expression right first time every time, but you have to bring people into that discussion. If it's
Mhm.
pushed down onto them, you're going to find very quickly that those systems are bypassed, dare I use the word sabotaged, but they're not going to be accepted. They're not going to be adopted. They're not going to be welcomed. And you want your team to welcome them and to understand, again, this is not a virtual whip or stick to be used to beat people into doing a better job. It's an enhancement, it's a tool that helps us to develop and deliver a safer place to work and ensure that we meet our customers' quality expectations. And if we do that consistently, then the cost and the delivery side of the business is going to take care of itself. Those are the organic outcomes. Happy employees who aren't tired or exhausted, happy customers, perfect quality. Yeah, no warranty or quality concerns coming in. So we keep our costs at their most optimized level, profits for everyone, and repeat business from our customers. That's what we want. That's what's going to keep businesses alive, and that's what's going to help them thrive and continue in the United States of America. So that's
Yeah.
what we need to deliver on. But don't push the technology down. Introduce people to the technology, explain it to them, help them understand why it's important and what the competitive edge it's going to give us. Have them accept it. And they may even come up with some solutions or suggestions you might not have thought
Mhm.
of, how else that technology can be deployed. Toyota call it the voice of or the power of the shop floor. So in
Mm.
every aspect, whenever we make a change, because change always equals risk, especially in Toyota's mind, then let's look at how we can mitigate that risk and turn that risk into an opportunity.
Yeah, it's very well said. The human element is uh, probably more important than the technology element. And when you bring technology and the human element, achieving that balance is what will make you competitive because
Exactly right.
it's not easy to do that. And
Yeah,
that's great points though. Sasha, thank you. This was a very useful discussion. And
it's been my pleasure.
Yes, and thank you for being on this podcast. And I hope you have a good day after this.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you,
Mm.
Deepak. It's been a pleasure for me.